everyone, my name is Sani Rajendran and my metric number is 33DCE20F2006 and I'm from class DCE1E. So today we are going to talk about domestic violence. We are currently living in the 21st century where we are fighting and protesting for gender equality, racism and so many other issues that just shakes up the government. It's quite disappointing that cases reported about domestic violence are increasing. Domestic violence is a black cloud in society that has affected life since the dawn of human life. This disturbing violence affects individuals, families, communities which we live. Families are going through this locally and globally. Even in USA, between 960,000 and 3 million incidents of domestic violence are reported each year. Just imagine how many cases are unreported. Let me just explain what generally domestic violence is. Domestic violence is any violence that is committed by someone in the victim's domestic circle. The domestic circle includes partner, which is spouse, husband and wife, ex-partners, which is ex-husband and ex-wife, immediate family members like our parents, siblings, spouse, children, and other relatives and family friends. Domestic violence can take form of physical abuse, psychological abuse, sexual abuse, and few more. Now, I'd like to highlight my main points which I'll be talking about in this presentation, and that is types of domestic violence, the current issues, causes, effects, solutions to escape and avoid domestic violence. There are few types of domestic violence. First and foremost, the physical abuse. A physical abuse is when someone uses their part of the body, like hands or legs, or an object to control the person's action. Now, this is very common. In many situations, people think it is normal. No, it's not. For an example, a husband beating his wife. It's wrong. Even when a father beats or slaps his children in order to make them realize their guilt, is considered physical abuse. This can create a toxic household which will affect the children in so many ways. Beating a child is not a way to make them realize their fault. Next is emotional abuse. Emotional abuse is when someone says or does something that makes a person feel stupid or worthless. For instance, when a child does not achieve the expectation of their parents. And for that, they humiliate their child, disrespecting them, calling them stupid, burying a disappointment feeling in the child, making them feel they are not good enough for anything. We have to respect even a child, not only elders, because respect goes both ways. This emotional abuse is a serious issue. Following that, financial abuse. Financial abuse is when someone controls the resources without the person's consent. Those who are victimized financially may be prevented from working. They may also have their own money restricted or stolen by the abuser. Sexual abuse, the most serious issue that should never be underestimated or even ignored. Sexual abuse is when someone is forced unwillingly to take part in a sexual activity. And also when someone performed a sexual activity on a person without their consent. This happens to 90% of the women, where the sad part is, this is done by those who they trust and really so-called their domestic circle. Not only women, it also has happened to men. This is one sinful action that needs to be addressed and stopped immediately. We humans should never objectify another human just for a pleasure. This type of action always questions humanity. Does the abuser ever thought what the victim would be facing, their traumas, their trust issues, how victim would be facing their reality? Some victim doesn't even know what is happening to them and cannot stop them. That is painful and very traumatizing. I would just like to highlight some other types of domestic violence such as child abuse, spiritual violence, senior abuse, culture violence, verbal abuse, and also even neglecting is one of the domestic violence. As I mentioned earlier, domestic violence is increasing day by day as per physical abuse, psychological abuse, and sexual abuse increases. Just last year in Petalinjaya, a newlywed girl named Nelly, 21 years old, jumped from the balcony of her first floor flat 3:30 a.m. to escape her abusive husband, only 1 week into their marriage. This 21 years old girl, emotionally and physically battered bride, required surgery, having suffered multiple fractures on 4 toes in the fall. After her forced arranged marriage of 4 days before MCO was enforced in Malaysia due to the COVID-19 outbreak, on the first day of MCO, her husband began to beat her. He threatened to hunt Nelly and kill her if she tries to flee. This type of acts does not only affect the victim, but also their child far more worse physically and mentally, and also their environment. In order to that, what are the causes of domestic violence? The first cause is when the partner feels the need to control and dominate, which will lead them to a violent behavior. However, regular use of other abusive behaviors by the abuser, when reinforced by one or more acts of physical violence, makes a larger system of abuse. Although the physical assault may occur only once or occasionally, they instill the fear of future violent attacks and allow the abuser to take control of the victim's life and circumstances. Power and control wheel is a particularly helpful tool in understanding the overall pattern of abusive and violent behavior, which are used by abusers to establish and maintain their control over his partner or her partner, or any other victim in the household. Very often, one or more violent incidents may be accompanied by an array of these other types of abuse. There are less easily identified yet firmly established pattern of intimidation and control in the relationship. Most of the abusive partner feel the need to control because of low self-esteem and jealousy. Jealousy is the fact that can destroy even a beautiful relationship into nothing. Alcohol. Alcohol is a significant factor for domestic violence, particularly in indigenous communities. Evidence suggests that alcohol use increases the chances and gravity of domestic violence, showing direct correlation between the two. A longitudinal analysis of alcohol outlet density found a relationship between alcohol availability and domestic violence. Because alcohol use affects cognitive and physical function, it reduces a person's self-control and lessens the ability to negotiate a non-violent resolution to conflict, which in the end lead to violence. First, the effect on the victim. The victim gets physical health injuries and problems, which may not get medically treated, in some situations, even death. The domestic violence is a leading cause of death in illness and disabilities. Moreover, the victim gets emotional and physical traumas. This is a devastating impact on the individual's physical, mental, and emotional health, including depression, shame, anger, sometimes suicide. Next is effect on children. Children and young people don't have to see the violence to be affected by it. Study shows that living with domestic violence can cause physical and emotional harm to children and young people. Children will be having anxiety, depression, emotional distress, eating and sleeping disturbance, and physical symptoms such as headaches and stomach aches. Moreover, these might struggle with low self-esteem. This could lead to self-harm and sometimes be aggressive towards friends and schoolmates. They might have feel the guilt, blaming themselves for the violence, and having trouble to form a positive relationship with anyone. Apart from that, there is also a major effect on the family. The violence and the threat of violence at home creates a fear that can destroy the family environment and the peace of the family, which could lead to breakup of the families. In some situations, even the police will be involved in order for child protection. The effect of domestic violence on the community. Children growing up without learning positive and respectful relationships, which can affect them on having a trouble in forming relationships. High rates of alcohol and other drug use, mental problems increases day by day because of domestic violence. At any given moment, we have the power to say that this is not how the story is going to end. Ignoring and not involving is a same crime as the abuser. So, call the police if you spot any evidence of domestic violence in your neighborhood, or even if this happened to people you have known. Apart from that, victims should seek nearby help by alerting situations to neighbors or anyone nearby. The victim should try maximum to strengthen the economic support for the family to escape from the abuser or file charge against the abuser, because the economic support is very important. Moreover, if the person feels being victimized or felt any sign of domestic violence, do not hesitate to take the precaution steps in early stages. Domestic violence is not normal. Always take advantages of safety numbers and code for seek help. There are safety numbers everywhere. For an example, police numbers, schools, restaurants, everywhere. Just take advantages of the safety numbers. There are many professionals spreading awareness about domestic violence and standing in for domestic violence victims. Last but not least, taking this as an opportunity, I would love to salute all the domestic violence survivors. They are stronger than they know. Domestic part doesn't matter. Violence is violence. So let's spread awareness and stop domestic violence.